Welcome to the Wizards of Ecom, your no-fluff playbook for online success. Each episode is fully packed with actionable tactics you can implement in your business right now. Take your life to a higher level and excel in your online success. It's time to work on you and your business. Let's do this.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Wizards of Ecom. This is Amy, your host, and today I have on Daniela Bolzmann. She is a CEO and founder of Mindful Goods, a company or an agency that specializes in high quality Amazon listings for CPG brands. She is an amazing person. I got to know her via our common friend, Elizabeth Green of Jungler. Without further ado, Daniela, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Daniela, we had a chance to talk in a few words about who you are and what you do, brilliantly. And we were talking about listing optimization and why sometimes people are just throwing around that word and without explaining what actually means, So today I have you on as a specialist on this topic. And we would start from beginner questions or newbie questions to really advanced level questions. So everyone from our audience can actually understand and take at least one actionable step during their improving their listings. And I think the first question is in your own words, how would you define what is an Amazon listing?
Sure. I'll also say, Noemi, I think you're not giving your audience credit. I want people to take more than one action after this podcast specifically. We're going to make it so easy for everyone.
Heck yeah. Let's do it, definitely.
Okay, so an Amazon listing, and this is actually a great question because people oftentimes come to us and get this really confused. They think they're asking for one thing, but there's some words here that we need to clarify, right? So there is an Amazon storefront and there's an Amazon listing. And most oftentimes people come to us asking for an Amazon storefront. What they're really trying to say is, I want to get selling on Amazon. What's the quickest, fastest path to getting there, right? And really at the end of the day, setting up your storefront is a great nice to have, but the action is happening on your actual product page or what people call your Amazon listing. Okay. And that's specifically where most of us go to click and buy a product. You can still click and buy from storefront now, but the storefront is a separate page entirely where usually external traffic is landing on Amazon, and it looks more like a landing page than it does a traditional shopping page on Amazon. So it's really clear to differentiate the two, or it's important to differentiate the two. And primarily, we always recommend early stage brands really start with a heavy focus on their actual Amazon listing so that they're focused on conversion. And then once they've gotten that under themselves a little bit and they've gotten some traction, they can reinvest into their storefront, which means reinvesting in external channels like Facebook or Google Ads or whatever channels you're going to be testing out and driving that traffic to your storefront, which is critical. So two completely different phases of where you might be in your Amazon journey.
Brilliant. And I love that you also specified, what most of the time, I don't even thought that people would take that, mistakenly think that Amazon storefront and Amazon listing is the same thing. So that's brilliant that you actually mentioned that.
Yeah, we hear that actually pretty commonly.
All right. So now that we understand what an Amazon listing is, I would say starting with the anatomy of a fully optimized listing, how would you describe a listing, an Amazon listing, as a character in a movie?
As a character in a movie?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
For example, whenever someone is seeing a movie, there's one star and they're the supporting actors and so on. And if it was a movie itself, who would be the star, for example, which part of the listing, and which one would be the leading role, which one would be the helpers, let's put it that way. So I hope that this makes sense.
Okay, that's interesting. I've never had this question asked before. So lead actor or leading role would primarily be your SEO, right? So SEO is really what is going to help you get found on Amazon. Amazon at the end of the day is a search engine. So just like Google, when you type something in, you want to be showing up in those results. And the number one way that you're going to get found is through your SEO. So that would be, the leading role. But the supporting role and not necessarily this, I wouldn't call the supporting role one person, but I would call the, actually, yeah, I would call the supporting role one person. Let's narrow the supporting role down to your main image, right? So let's say you are showing up in the search results, your supporting role would then be your main image, which is helping you stand out from the competition and get those clicks into your listing, right? But what really makes a movie happen, right? It's not just the lead actor, it's not the supporting role. It's, at the end of the day, all of the staff members, the people who work on wardrobe, all of those people come together to actually make the production happen. And at the end of the day, once people come inside of your listing, how are you getting them to convert? And you're getting them to convert through visuals and compelling copy. And so those are the basic fundamentals of every Amazon product listing that you have to remember. It's SEO, main image that's getting attention and getting click through, and then everything that's inside your listing is getting them to convert. So answering any questions, compelling imagery. You have to remember that 90% of what we take in as humans and we digest is visual. So if we don't have compelling visual assets that complement what we're actually trying to say on the screen, then you can imagine that people are not being convinced to buy. So that's how I would break it down in a movie setting.
That was brilliant. And honestly, first when, like, you know, when you're thinking of a question, it's like, it's easy. But now that I just realized this was a hard question and you just nailed it. So that was amazing. All right. So lead role is SEO, right? Most of the time what I notice people are not really talking about this. They are thinking, okay, listing, it has to be done and everything has to be done. The pictures have to be done. A+ has to be there. But sometimes they miss SEO actually. And it's like, really, like, that is the core, because you want to make sure to show up for anyone who's looking for it.
It's the number one.
Yeah.
It's the number one. And we have to remember to think of it like a funnel. And I know this is probably a new principle for a lot of people, but everything on the internet happens in a funnel. Okay. So if you imagine the funnel that's in your kitchen, the top of it is a lot wider, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's where people are coming into the funnel, and as you go further and further down the funnel, less of those people are actually buying your product. So we want to get as many people into the funnel as possible. But if you're not being found at the top of the funnel because you don't have proper SEO, then you just have such a less opportunity to get people to purchase your product. So SEO is critical, crucial. I would say more than half of the clients that come to us think that they did it right, and they haven't. And the other, I would say 50%, out of all of the clients that come to us throughout the year, about 10%, maybe 20% max, have really spent diligence on their SEO. And I think that's because it seems really hard, right? When you think about it, listing optimization as a term seems kind of scary. We don't really understand what it means. It seems so ambiguous. It seems like only experts can do this. And to be honest, it's just common sense, figuring out what works for your product and doing the research and sitting down and doing it, which is something that a lot of people don't want to learn as a skill. And I get that. That's what keeps us in business. Let's be honest. But if you break down SEO, it's just thinking about taking yourself out of you as one data point, right? So let's use an example of a journal, which I actually use in my free training, which I can share with everyone here. Sure. But a journal, right? We might go on Amazon and search for a journal. And when you look at what auto-populates below a journal, it might say journal for women, journal for guys, journal for men, journal for teenage girls, journal with lines, journal with outlines, black journal, large journal, skinny journal, all those different journal things, right? So we have to remember that just because we think of journal as it's just a journal, or it's a lined journal. Other people are searching for a very specific type of journal to solve their specific type of problem. They are looking for a journal for their teenage daughter because their teenage daughter is being bullied. So if you have a very specific product that solves that very specific problem, we want to make sure that we're including all of those keywords, right? Another example, a cultural example, right? So Christmas tree. We might just think the word Christmas tree is just Christmas tree. Other people all over the world call it something totally different. So we have to think outside the box, think outside of just ourselves, and try to think, what are the things that other people are looking for? Maybe I want a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Maybe I want a Christmas tree with ornaments. Maybe I want a Hanukkah tree. Maybe I want a white plastic Christmas tree. Maybe I want a green one. So we have to really think through all of these options. But the great news is that most of this data is already out there. There's tools that we can use that can help us, one, understand what is working for our top competitors. And there's tools that are also going to help us dive a little bit deeper into those other data points to maybe discover keywords that are specifically tailored to our product that people are looking for, and we just didn't even know it. So those are some great reasons why we should be doing the keyword diligence up front.
I love it. And I love that you just went on and just like explain everything. And you just went through all my questions. So thank you for that. All right, not really all my questions. I have a lot of questions. I think the next thing would be like, we were talking about like people not understanding that SEO being the lead role here. What are the top 3 common mistakes that you see people are making whenever they are thinking of listing optimization?
Ooh, great question. Probably the number one mistake I see is the copy paste setup, which is, I'm already selling on Shopify and I have great images on Shopify. I'm just going to take what I have and put it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. That might work for a little while, but you're going to plateau, and then you're going to realize that other people are getting ahead of you and you're not going to know why, right? And the reason usually comes back to these 3 factors all over again, right? Was that your cat? Was that
yes,
you?
Sorry, that is you. Ruining all my recordings, and I cannot even like close the door because he's going to meow yes again. So apologies everyone listening, and apologies Daniela for interruption. Yes, please go on.
That's okay. Hopefully I get to see you.
Yeah.
So where was I?
We're talking about copy pasting the same listing. Copy pasting the same listing.
Oh yeah, that's probably the number one mistake that we see. So the reason why that doesn't work is, one, because the SEO, right? But the second thing is because on Amazon, it's a different type of shopper. Okay. It's someone who's already a warm shopper. They're searching for something. They have a number of questions in their mind of whether this is the right product that's going to solve their problem or not. Right. Mm-hmm. And so when we think through that, we have to try to address every single question that we can. As soon as possible, right? And when you're buying something on Shopify, it's a different type of buying experience. It's like maybe you saw an Instagram ad and it was so beautiful and you're like, I need to have that in my life. And you're going there and you're just like looking at it and it looks beautiful and you buy it, right? But remember, when you hit Amazon, you're already trying to solve a problem in your mind and you are looking for this one specific thing. So at the end of the day, inside of your listing, we need to make sure that we're answering all of those questions, right? And so that's the second thing that I think is normally missing, and it's missing because of the first problem, which is just copy pasting and treating the shopper like it's the same shopper when it's really not. The Amazon shopper is already warm, they have intent, and it's a value-based shopper, right? So we need to prove that to them in a way. There's also a lot more competition because it's a marketplace. So that's the third thing that I see is that most brands, when they're setting up their listings, they're not thinking through, how can I make sure that I'm standing out above the competition? How can I make sure that my magnesium spray looks like a legit brand? It doesn't look like everyone else on the marketplace. And then I'm actually showing and telling all the way through my entire listing so that people understand how we're different, how we're going to change their life.
Brilliant. I love it. And you're so like very specific, very precise, very concise. Love that. The next question, I think it would be like optimization strategy. We were talking about optimization and understanding what a listing is basically. But here at optimization strategies, like let's say it's someone, it's going to decide to go with you and go with your agency. And what would the first steps would be? Would changing the whole listing would be a good idea? With changing just a few words would be a good idea? And the reason I'm asking this is because most of the time what's happening, or let's be super honest, super truthful here, let's start with me. When I started, like,
sure.
When I started first to understand, okay, what it takes to really have an outstanding listing and understanding a bit of SEO, I was like, oh, let's change that in the title and so on and so on. And what I noticed, like, I made so many changes that I really ruined my ranking basically for a few days until the algorithm replaced me where I was beforehand, or maybe it moved me a bit higher, and I see this is a very, very common mistake, especially, and you know what, not only, I would say,
too many things too fast.
Too many things too fast, and not only new sellers are going to do this, but everyone who's like listening to maybe this episode and they were like, oh, I have to change everything, or so this is something very, very common. And here I think your take would be like, what's the first thing that you should look at whenever you're going to optimize your listing?
Sure. So there's a couple things here, right? The first thing we always do is do what's called a mini audit. So when you go to our website, you can see examples of what I'm talking about, but it's basically looking at your listing in those 3 steps that we just broke down, right? Mm-hmm. The second thing is, if you're already an existing seller and you're selling well, you do have to take caution, specifically with your SEO. Graphics, I wouldn't say are a really big deal in terms of like changing rank or whatever, but your title, be very careful with. So I really try to understand, is this a new product that's just coming to market or just going to be launching on Amazon? You can kind of treat that with like, rip off the Band-Aid, let's go. Is this a broken listing? Meaning like nothing's working. Like you got started and you just had a false start, or, all of these competitors came into your market and your ranking just completely tanked and you changed so much, you don't even know what to do at this point. Mm-hmm. So again, rip off the Band-Aid, let's go, let's move forward. Right. And then there's the type of seller that is already selling well. Already selling well, already established in their niche. And we have a number of clients that are this way as well, who you do have to be careful with. One of these was actually Yes Bar. And they were one of those brands that they were already established in the market, selling well. And they just realized, we're a snack bar and there's a lot of new people coming to market from when they first started their company. And they had first set it up, not in a haphazardly kind of way, but like what was good at the time. Mm-hmm. And then they realized that since then, their brand identity has kind of evolved, their messaging has evolved, and they haven't really invested back into that channel that is still generating a good amount of business for them. And so they came to us and they said, look, we're already selling well. How should we handle this? So we did our mini audit where we typically walk them through each phase of the funnel. We took a look at their listings. We tried to understand what's going on with conversion rates. And then we said, look, at the end of the day, we're going to do a refresh because everything was outdated. Everything was mixed matched across the listing. So we needed everything to have one voice, one set of messaging, clean aesthetic all the way across the board. And they agreed. But when we went to make the changes after we finished, we isolated one change. First, I asked them, please don't change anything else, only update the main image. And the reason for that is because we want to give it 2 weeks to understand if it's working. We do our split testing off of Amazon first with my favorite tool called PickFu, which I love, which, by the way, if you use the code mindful VIP, you get your first poll half off. But this is the tool that I think every brand should be using that is not using that. It's like my not so secret tool that I think every brand should be using. It's awesome.
I agree to that. Anthony was just like, he was the presenter, like he presented to us like 2 weeks ago on the podcast. So I think that shout out to Anthony.
Yes, they're phenomenal. Phenomenal team. They're easy to reach. That you get the data super fast. It's affordable. It's something that everyone can and should be doing. Okay. So we come up with 2 or 3 different ideas of what could be the main image. We test it on PickFu. Then we tighten everything up, give them the feedback, because you get lots of really great feedback from Amazon shoppers on there. And then you tighten up your image and then you upload the winning variation only to Amazon, right? So you're swapping out your main image, but don't change anything else, right? Because what we're trying to do, which plays back into your story, right? What we're trying to do is just isolate one change so we can understand if it's really working. Just because it validated off of Amazon doesn't mean it's fully validated yet. We have to test it, right? So we put it on Amazon and then we wait and we don't touch anything else, even though we have all these other beautiful images we want to upload and beautiful copy we want to upload and all these other things. We wait with that one thing. We wait for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, they saw an 11.8% increase in click-through traffic from one change.
Wow.
Okay. Now imagine if you have a larger portfolio of products and you do that. I mean, that's massive improvement. And that's one change. And so title, you have to be even more careful than that. With title, you'd never want to just, if you're an existing seller, you never want to just delete your whole title and start over. You want to be very careful with the front of the title because that's what Amazon's paying the most attention to. And then to the back end of the title, you can make periodic changes, right? Again, for a seller like that, it's not about just like wiping the board clean. It's about really understanding what they're already being indexed for, which again, those SEO tools can tell you. And by indexing, let's just pause and explain that to everyone. Indexing is basically Amazon identifying a word or a phrase that they find relevant to your listing and product, but also to the shopper, right? So they're basically saying, oh, a shopper was searching for a journal with lines on it, or lined journal, let's say, and their title says lined journal. Let's index this listing for lined journal, right? So it's them basically acknowledging that your listing should be associated with that search term. And that usually happens more and more with more buying behavior, right? So it's not something that always happens with every search term, immediately overnight. That's why some brands are like, why can't I find my own product on Amazon? It's like, well, it takes time. People don't even know who your brand is yet, So that's basically the main point with that is that, making one isolated change is where you start and then rolling out the other changes little by little.
I'm super curious there with the main image change. Did you, like on the back end, did you reuse the same keywords that you were previously using, or did you use different type of keywords there?
The main image?
Yes.
The main image, there's no keywords on the main image. It's just basically the titling of the main image.
Yes.
Which may or may not have been different, but that's a good point. We typically have a naming convention that is like brand, product, and then main. So brand, product, if it has a flavor, and then main, so that everything stays organized when we're doing stuff. So I'm sure that may or may not contribute to, I don't know. That's actually that would be its own really good test. Just same visual, but changing the name of the actual main image.
Yeah,
that gets into like really, really deep optimization hacks.
The reason why I'm asking, because like when and lo and behold, Daniela just called that a very deep tactic, which for me it was like, yeah, really? Okay, that's amazing. Thank you. No, the reason why I was asking is because you were saying that just only one change like of the image, and I was like thinking, hey, is there like, because sometimes what I notice, sometimes I might misplace things and not finding the exactly, because on the back end, only if you're saving it somewhere, only then you can see the title of the picture. And I was saying like, oh, maybe I took something like mistakenly, or I put some like different words or so on, because I was testing like A/B testing that as well.
You mean like saving it as an asset in the back end?
Not saving it as an asset, but you have also tags for each picture. Whenever,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and I was thinking maybe I didn't put this time the AC. Maybe I I'm like, what have I done? This time it worked, and I think the most critical things are when it's working, what worked, and you don't know. So this is why it was amazing that you pointed out, hey, just do one change at a time and make sure that it's exactly the same thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, because otherwise.
Definitely. And that's the thing. If you have too many things going on, you don't really know what it was that worked, right? So yeah, that's even within the one change that you're making, you want to make sure. So when we're testing on PickFu, for instance, here's a good example. So we were doing a test for bracelets, and I asked our photo studio, can you get me all of these different angles, and one on the wrist, one stacked, one flat lay, one this, one that, and then they sent me 3 with the same bracelet and then 2 with another bracelet. And if I upload those to PickFu, that test is going to be biased, right? Because somebody might say that they preferred this bracelet just because of the aesthetic of the bracelet, not because of the position of the hand or the bracelet. So you have to be careful when you're testing to remove those things that can cause bias in the testing process, right?
Those are really badass ninja skills there. Thank you for sharing that. And as you were saying at the beginning of the show, I think that our listeners are going to take a lot of like wise things here, like wise golden nuggets, I would say. to not get too deep into this topic, yet still be along with it, I think like you were saying 2 weeks. You usually like take 2 weeks to see if something works or not. How long would normally take for a change to be made, or is that
all depends on the velocity of your product. So if you're selling high volume, you can get results much faster. If you're selling low volume, it will take longer. And 2 weeks is kind of a generally safe, but you want to look for, you want to be looking for enough data to where you're confident in your decision, So for us, we're looking for like usually 500 to 1,000 transactions. You want to be looking for that. And if that's not achievable for you, because again, like this is achievable for very early stage brands. It's if you're getting less sales than that, you can generally just use the PickFu data to like trust in that data, right? And usually that data is correct. So that's why we test off of Amazon first, just to get that validation, that like pre-validation, and then upload it to Amazon. If you do want to double check it on Amazon, that's what we tend to do when we have a higher velocity account where we can do that. So it's definitely up to the brand owner.
Something like yours, because you were mentioning PickFu, and also like we are using PickFu, and Anthony was on the show. Is there like a Rumble tool? Is there a tool? Not Rumble tool. Yeah, there you go. So it went away. A rule of thumb. That was the word.
Yeah.
Found it finally. I don't have my coffee. Obviously, I'm drinking water. So yes. So is there a specific rule of thumb when it comes to PickFu and the way how you are like selecting the audience? And I'm talking only about size now, because you were mentioning around like 500 to 1,000 sales here. That should like give a good idea to you to really understand the change was good or not. Is there also like an audience size that you would take and make sure that it's like a right audience size? Sometimes I feel there are too little or too many people to bring your decision, and people are not really like knowing exactly how to choose that. So what's the best practice there?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So we actually do multiple tests. We don't just do one. And so as you can imagine, if you're testing for larger amounts of people, the cost can add up significantly. So what we're trying to solve for is we're trying to get a validation that is like concrete, and PickFu will tell you if it's statistically significant with just even 50 voters, right? So what we're trying to do is run a poll and test something and have it just completely landslide. That's our goal. When we come up with ideas for main images, we're like, we don't want just slight changes to an image. We want drastically changed main images that are completely different concepts from one another, so that there's a very clear winner, And so once we run them, we that's what we're shooting for, right? Now, the first test might be, so for us, we've actually done this with a CPG brand recently, where we did a first test that was like, we were trying to test which main image is the winner in terms of like positioning of the product. I mean, not positioning language wise, I mean, positioning physically wise, right? Is it a slight angle? Is it the package is going like this in a upside down U shape? Is it a side angle, with a drop shadow that's really hard? And so we're really trying to like figure out that first, right? Then we get a good solid winner that we're all happy with. Then it was, well, now we have all this real estate, because when we did a render, we had this extra carton at the bottom where we could drop in some text real estate, right? To show, if you're going to get this package coming from Amazon, that's a case pack. Now we have this extra real estate that we can drop some text onto. Well, what's the text that's actually going to help people and aid the shopper in the buying process to actually click on our listing, right? People want to know how many come in this pack. They want to know the actual selling points that they're looking for, right? So for instance, I want something that's low sugar, or I want something that's gluten-free. And so we know that these are trends that are happening on Amazon, but specifically a brand might also know people who buy our product buy it because it's paleo and it's this, And so if those are the things that about your audience, you would naturally put that there. But if your product is new to market and you have no idea what is the thing, you might want to test it on a tool like PickFu to help you get that data really early without you having to send 1,000 units to product testers all over the nation,
Yeah, you're brilliant, and you're really dropping like golden nuggets here. And even Hugh agrees with you. So I'm so happy that Elizabeth recommended you to be on the show. It was the best recommendation possible.
I think Hugh's in the background cheering me on. I think he's like,
yeah. But you know what? And he's not coming here. Come here. Come say hello. And he's like, no. Okay, good. All right. Oh. Is your doggy there?
Janji, you want to say hi? Yeah, you want to say hi? Come here.
Obviously. You know, sometimes I wish I would.
He'll come say hi in a minute.
Okay. Yeah. I was just about to say, you know, just some nice words. I was just about to say that I wish sometimes we would have a dog, you know, they would be like more relying and they would come. But I can see, look, in the video, you can see him, like, or his ears at least.
You can?
Yeah, just a bit.
Janji, come here. Come say hi. Here, I'll show everybody this is my Frenchie Chanchi. And Chanchi means piggy. It means piggy in Spanish. So we call him little piggy. Piggy Smalls.
I love it. So everyone who's just listening to this, please switch over to YouTube because you must see it was a super, super adorable doggy. So even I, as a cat parent, loved it. So you must. Daniela, to be super, super respectful for today, I think it's the day of like making very common mistakes that I would usually not. So there you go. To be super respectful of your time. I would like to ask only one question that it's like, because we are in Q4 and obviously it's a lot of hype about it. What would be the best practices if someone decides to optimize their listing right now in Q4, and what should be they aware of?
Good question. If you're already selling well, the tips that we already shared earlier are really great tips. Wait, as much as this is surprisingly one of our busiest quarters of the year, because for some reason people like to wait until the last minute to update their listings. We tell you to do it other times of the year. But you know what, at the end of the day, like, you need to be careful if you're an existing seller. And refresh slowly. You can also start working on your assets so that they're ready to go January. January is also, like, the holidays can be not as significant of a difference in sales for things like CPG, right? It depends on your product. Whereas like January might be the time for them, right? Which is, a lot of our clients are CPG food brands. And so for them, they're falling into these like healthier trends, which is where most people after the holidays start gravitating towards. So now is the time where a bulk of those types of brands come to us and say, we need to get everything ready for January. So that's the other thing to be careful of. Like, you don't want to be making these like drastic changes during your most critical times of year. You want to be doing it right before, so you can be prepared. Usually we're advising people we're an average time of 4 to 6 weeks. We advise people 4 to 8 weeks when it's a Q4 time of year. So just being mindful that, great creative takes time and great testing takes time. Like, you can't expect to just like do a complete overhaul in a matter of days and then it's gonna you're gonna have magical sales. This stuff is something that you should be very careful with doing, and you should be very mindful about doing. And I think most of the people who are growing e-commerce brands that they see themselves running 5 to 10 years from now are thinking that way.
Brilliant advice. Thank you so much for that. Are there any questions that I should have asked that I haven't at this point?
I don't know. You hit like straight into the main juice of what I typically share, which is like the 3-step funnel is something that everyone really needs to be thinking about. And it's not rocket science. The third piece of that funnel, which we didn't actually get into, is once people click into your listing. We went heavy on the SEO, we went heavy on the split testing. But once people get into your listing, you want to be thinking of every single image as an opportunity to convert. Every image inside your listing should have a job. It should have a focus. It's either answering a question, nurturing, educating. It needs to be doing something, showing and telling, not just a pretty lifestyle flat lay of your snack bar laying on the counter. That does nothing for people. It's pretty. It belongs on Instagram. What people are doing on Amazon, they want to understand if it's solving their problem. So add some text layovers, add some call outs to really educate all the way down the page. If you're a brand and you have a trademark or a trademark pending, make sure you've applied for brand registry. It's free and it gives you such additional perks, including A+ content, which can lift your sales on average by 5%, which is something that Amazon says. And DataHawk is saying that they've seen improvements of up to 30% increase in sales or something like that, or 230% increase in conversion is the stat. So I mean, that's a huge benefit to brands that are getting, applying for their brand registry and getting that set up. That being said, on our website, we have tons of examples of what to do because if you imagine looking at different listings on Amazon, there's a bunch of different examples and you might be wondering like what works and what doesn't work. We publish a lot of our work on our website, so you can always check it out there.
And your website is, once again?
Oh, mindfulgoods.co. The free training I mentioned at the beginning of this call is launchreadylistings.com. And that basically has actual photos and images of the examples that we talked about today, including the funnels, the tools that we use. We basically lay it out there for everyone so that you can actually remember those actionable steps that we talked about at the beginning. Let's make the one action going to launchreadylistings.com, watch the training, and I guarantee you'll take 5 more actions just from watching that video.
I guarantee you would take at least 10 more, but yeah, let's say what Daniela says. It's fine.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. It's super, super helpful. And I love it each time when someone comes and they're really sharing their knowledge, because it's super, super important. Most of the time what I see, it's like, people are sharing knowledge, but it's very like all over the place, and I love that you were so concise with the ideas and so like really like answered all the questions. I love this because this is also why our audience is listening, it's information that it's like really executable information. Today, this is the third one. Let's hope this is the last one. All right. And I do have to drink some more coffee. So yes, thank you so much for having patience with me, Daniela. You're amazing. Yes, what's the best way that people can get a hold of you and your services?
Mindfulgoods.co is the best place to reach out to us. Right there, you can see if you qualify to work with us. We make it pretty clear who we work with right on that website.
Brilliant. And also before we're wrapping up, the questions that I love to ask my guests, and I'm asking this especially because you were prepared, right?
Yeah.
First off, I'm not sure if this is on the list, but if not, I'm going to say it. Which would be your superpower and why?
Ooh, my superpower is probably that I don't see obstacles.
Oh, love it.
I see an obstacle course.
Love it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
That's definitely my superpower. That's my superpower in life. My superpower in business is that because I've seen so many visuals over the course of just doing this by nature in our business, it's just naturally intuitive for me at this point. So it's really easy for me to just hop on one of our mini audits and just be like, whoa, boom, 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 boom. These are the next 5 things that need to change immediately. So it's really easy for me to just like see what's going on and understand like natively as a shopper, what's disconnecting for a lot of brands. Right. And so that's really become my biggest superpower in business.
I love it. And what else do you need? Honestly, nothing. Okay. Maybe some food and some love, and that's all. Love it. What would your $50 or less investment would be if it was to learn about listing optimization?
Ooh, to learn about listing optimization. So I'll tell you, I had 2 other tools prepared because the $50 listing optimization tool for me that I think not for learning about listing optimization, but what has helped our agency and what has helped most of our clients is really one that we talked about already, which is PickFu, which I love, which again, the code is mindful VIP to get your first pull 50% off. But my other favorite tool that I think makes making your listings beautiful so much easier is in the past, there only used to be these like product on white photo studios, right? Now there's a photo studio that's bringing lifestyle imagery to that same product on white methodology where you do a photo shoot, you take a bunch of images, and then you buy the ones that you like, right? Which if anyone's ever had a photo shoot done professionally, they can cost thousands of dollars, right? And so what this company does, which is called Suna, is you can send your product to them and you can pick the set, you can pick the colors, you can pick, a hand model with black painted nails. You can, you can do all of this stuff. And then you just buy the image that you want for $39, or the images that you need for your listing for $39. And in the past, these types of things used to be so complicated, time consuming, expensive to figure out, coordinate, all of that. And now you just ship your product, get it done. And we can ship product and shoot in the same week with Suna, which is unheard of. And it's a female founded company, and I love them just as much as PickFu. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that tip with everyone, because I feel like their name isn't fully out there yet. But Suna is phenomenal. And also, if you use Mindful VIP, you get a free image with Suna. So there you go.
Awesome. We're going to provide all these codes within the show notes. So just take a look at the show notes. There's your codes for it. What are your top 3 favorite books and why?
Oh, okay. I prepared for this one. So in terms of life, my favorite book was You Are a Badass. Mm-hmm. That one for me was just critical to help you understand that you do have your own superpowers and to help you step out on your own, right? And then in terms of transitioning into that superpower, it was for me Design Your Life. Okay. Which is basically treating your life as a design sprint and realizing that you have multiple chapters in your life. You might not just be meant to do one thing, so it's okay. And then, for me, I have 2 in the business category. One is more on the finance side, which is Profit First. So if you're starting a business, whether it's a brand or an agency like mine, Profit First is really helpful for some people who struggle with how to create financial structure that works in everyday business life when you're first getting started in your business and you don't want to spend a ton of money on an accountant, right? Or don't have a ton of money to spend on an accountant. Like, you'll get your bookkeeping done at the end of the year and all of that. But Profit First helps you mentally understand how to organize your money as it comes into your business so that you end up making the right decisions financially for your business. And in your personal life. It's not just business. Mm-hmm. And then the final one is Traction. For anyone that's building systems and scaling, Traction is a phenomenal book that I've actually come back to multiple times over because I hear different things from it every time I listen to it. My business is at a different place, so I'm ready to take on a little bit more of the system that they explain there that helps you fully scale and automate your business. So love that one.
Brilliant. If you believe that everything works for you, I think, okay, not to be selfish because you were amazing during the whole podcast, but I think this is exactly what I needed. I needed traction. This is something that I'm currently working on, to how to understand better systems, how to use them better in the business. So you're a godsend. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everything does happen for a reason.
Yeah, love that. And I took also a note of all the books. Thank you so much once again for being on the podcast. It was really a blast, and I love to see whenever someone is I'm super much expecting all my podcast guests because they are really badasses, as you were saying, but I love to be surprised by how, I don't know. So you were very, 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 very welcome next time as well on the show. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a pleasure for me as well. And for all our listeners, thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for watching as well. This was Naomi and this was Daniela with Wizards of Ecom. See you next Monday. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.
It was fun sharing this episode with you. If you found value in what you've heard, please show your love with a subscribe, rate, and review of the show. Until next time.